400 kilometers. But it was a very good occasion for the communists to get rid of the opponents as well. So my granddad spent there 3 years, and with a granddad like that, willy-nilly, I grew up in a family with very profound anti-communist views. But even if I was 15 during the revolution days, I really felt that that was the moment when we really had to stand up and fight for our elementary rights. Among them, liberty of expression, liberty of movement, the freedom of speech, and so on. Because there were times when we didn't have some basic rights, such as food, clothes, TV programs. We had only one TV program with 2 hours daily, out of which 1 hour and a half was with Ceausescu's greatest hits, great achievement, yeah? And only half an hour daily with crappy families. No heat in the houses during winter time, no warm water. Each and every evening the electricity got cut off for economic reasons, because Romania exported energy in the Soviet Union back then. Our phones were listened to by the secret agents, a lack of everything. And we were kept like prisoners in an open prison, if I may say. Yeah? Despite there were some complaints addressed to the Communist Party, they chose to send the tanks on the streets to fight against civilians. So, on 21st of December 1989, Ceausescu organized a big meeting in the Revolution Square. Have you visited?
Yes, this morning.
Yeah, this morning, all right. When we, the people of Bucharest, supposed to condemn the hooligans in Timișoara city, the westernmost city of Romania, because they dared to rise for their freedom. And which is more important, in my opinion, they dared to rise against Ceausescu. At that time, Ceausescu was in a visit in Iran, in Tehran, and when he heard what happened in Timișoara, he came back, in Bucharest of course, and organized his last mistake, as I like to say, because actually Ceausescu not only allowed us to stay in the square, hundreds of thousands of people, he asked for the population to come and participate at his meeting. Otherwise, it was kind of impossible to stay in a group, even like we can stay today, by the way. Yeah? Because of one absurd communist law, which said that you cannot stay in a group with more than 5 people. Sounds weird, yeah? But why?
With purpose, yeah.
Yeah, because starting with September up to December 1989, so in 3 months, a number of around 10,000 Romanian citizens crossed illegally the border with Yugoslavia, and especially with Hungary, trying to get in the free world. And the most famous transfugee was Nadia Comaneci. Exactly, Nadia Comaneci. It was a great loss for the communists. So the communists, knowing the fact that usually the groups of transfugees were formed between, let's say, 10 and 15, they came up with this ridiculous idea not to let us gather. They were very afraid that we'll form a group to cross illegally the border, or, which was more, to start a protest against the government. One thing, if you were in a family with 7 kids, no one thought about it, because we're supposed to split the families into groups to be no more than 5 in each. So that's why I said it was ridiculous, but it was the cruel reality back in December 1989 when Ceausescu organized that meeting. And he was very surprised when the crowd started to boo him. And after 2 explosions, the crowd split into different locations in downtown Bucharest. And on the main boulevard, Magheru Boulevard, University Square, yeah, we created that famous barricade like in the French Revolution.
Oh.
Yes, but of course this time comprised, bus, cars, tables, chairs, by the way, even bottles, yeah. Actually, anything we could find on the restaurants on the both sides of the boulevard. And I was right there in the front line, face to face with the troops, 15 meters away, let's say 15 meters. And I was there with my best friend Radu, who was unfortunately shot dead in the evening, next to me. He was hit by a bullet in his cheek and his brain exploded. because the army, militia, but especially the secret agents chose to use hollow point bullets, explosive bullets, dum-dum bullets. Yeah. So because of that, I can see there was blood everywhere, and people died one after the other. Some of them were shot, others ran over, and they were torn apart by the chain tracks of the tanks. It is estimated that officially a number of 1,200 people lost their lives for freedom. Around 4,000 people were wounded, including myself on my left hand. And other about 4,000 people were arrested or just was captured. In the whole country, a number of 19 million bullets were shot for a population of less than 24 million inhabitants Romania had that day. And in the capital of Romania, in Bucharest, 2 million bullets were shot for a population of, let's say, 2.5 million inhabitants. That means almost one bullet per person.
Wow.
Now, I brought something with me, film, because what you see here is a piece of history.
Oh, wow.
See? What you can see here is not an ordinary flag. Yeah? This particular flag is one of the original flags of the Romanian Revolution in 1989. You can observe there's a hole inside because before was the communist coat of arms. And we cut it off and we used it as our symbol. I don't know if I told you, but even if I was 15, I personally formed and I led a group of around 200 teenagers, less than 200 teenagers, and I led them from this square, Revolution Square I was talking about, up to the North Railway Station in 5 trucks. And by the way, one of the most famous pictures of the Romanian Revolution is with me on the top of a truck with the speech to show you the picture. And you'll see me there on the top of a truck with a part of my group dressed in black. I used to wear black back then, with a lot of hair, not like today, and a bigger mouth, not like today. Anyway, we arrived too late at the North Railway Station. The person of the station washed the blood from the floor. The rumor said that 40 people were executed there. So because we arrived too late, what to do? Let's go back. But once we were outside of the station, we realized that our trucks disappeared. The drivers thought they did their job just to drop us there, and they left. In this case, what to do? Let's march. And marching our way back from the North Railway Station to the Revolution Square, one of my flag keepers was shot dead. There were 3 flag keepers. One of them was shot dead. And because I was the leader of that group, I was able to take this flag from that guy. I removed the stick from it, and I put it in a pocket inside of my jacket. And 2 months after, it was February 1990, 2 months after, I made a big mistake with it. I washed it.
Oh.
Yes, I washed it from human blood to be presentable because I consider it dirty, but it was a mistake. Afterwards I realized. But because I didn't wash it with soap, just with some plain water, few stains of blood still remained on it. It's a bit hard to be seen because of this light here, but a few drops still remained on it, and that's why my friends told me to give it to a museum. Yes, of course, no problem, but let it be. But it will be someday to be part of a museum. Not now. During those days, some of my colleagues, as well as today when we have commemorating days, but back then, some of my colleagues used to wear it like this, see, like a poncho, because in our conception it was more powerful to be covered in our national colors than just to keep the flag on. So if you have the chance to see pictures from the Romanian Revolution, and you'll see people wearing the flag like this, now you know the reason which stands behind it, why we loved to be covered in our national colors, and I'm very proud of this piece of history. Don't take it. I want to put it back. So I have to take care of it because it's very, very old, very rotten almost. Yeah, as you can see. And A friend of mine told me to put it in a frame. And I said, yeah, interesting, but can you see me going on the street with a frame like that? It's not my type, you know. That's why I prefer to have it here. Like that in this pocket, where I have anything else. I have a lot of other things here. I'm like a magician. I can find anything except a rabbit. I don't have. What I have here is a box with a small and ugly piece of metal, which is a bullet.
Yeah.
A bullet, like any other bullets, cannot harm anyone. It's shot already. But this one has an interesting story for me, and I would like to share it with you. December 22nd, 1989, Ceausescu decided to run away, taking the helicopter, being very afraid that he can be lynched by the population. So exactly on that moment, we broke the doors and we conquered the building. And of course, we conquered the famous balcony above the entrance. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Yeah, for us it was a great, a big victory to conquer the balcony more than to conquer the building, because from the balcony, Ceausescu addressed to the population. So anyway, we were there waving flags, shouting shoutings, expressing our happiness that Ceausescu ran away. And I was there as well, in a corner, burning my youth communist party card, because back then, any child were obliged to be a member of the Communist Party youth wing. I was no exception. I was forced to be part of it. And burning that red card, this particular bullet stopped in the banister of the balcony, 25 centimeters away from me. And it stayed there for 1 year and a half, up to June 1991. In June 1991, I was invited, among with some of my colleagues, of course, to visit the building, to have some talks with the authorities. And while on the balcony, talking with my friends and the authorities, telling them my story, I showed them the bullet which was still trapped in the banister. So I said, look, this is the bullet. See, this is a proof that I'm not lying. And one of my colleagues told me, yeah, but you should extract it now. I said, yeah, interesting, but if they will allow me, yeah. Anyway, the guy continued and said, we don't know when we'll be invited again. So anyway, I extracted back then in June 1991, but the guy was right, because the next invitation was in 2022. That means 31 years after that moment. Anyway, but I extracted back then. And I had it at home in a different box, not like this one. And during the years, the government of Romania offered me 4 diplomas. 4 diplomas in which they recognized me as a fighter with special merits in the victory of the Romanian Revolution, or as a fighter with decisive role in the victory of the Romanian Revolution, and so on. And every time when I received one of those 4 diplomas, I used to come home with them and put it next to this. And every time I chose this one instead of those 4 diplomas, because this one taught me one thing. This one taught me how to be humble. So I think this is the lesson that I had to learn from having it, to be humble and practice gratitude for what I have, to avoid taking things for granted. Anyway, I told you that there were 2 million bullets shot in Bucharest, all right? An interesting is that half of those 2 million bullets shot in the whole capital, half of them, I mean 1 million, 1 million bullets was shot in the very Revolution Square. Wow. And that's why, it's so important, the Revolution Square is so important for our recent history, for the revolutionaries, for the people of Bucharest. Just try to imagine a carpet of bullets and the empty shelves on the cobblestones. And of course, we teenagers used to collect them for souvenir, but as well, we used to collect the cases, the empty shelves, some of us thought they could be given to the soldiers, they could be refilled, but who were thinking to refill bullets in the middle of a revolution? We were very scared. There were snipers everywhere, people died here and there. But, some of my colleagues used to collect them. And as well, we used to collect them to do anything else with them. Just listen to it. Some of us used to whistle, to fulfill our time on the streets. Or I had a colleague who put 4 pieces here, transformed them, if I may say, into a pan flute. So the guy knew how to sing. Very interesting, yeah. And as well, we used them as something to communicate with, because we didn't have mobiles back then, or pagers. So because everything was spontaneous, we were not organized. We distinguished ourselves on the streets, creating 5 points here and there. So we need something in order to communicate between the groups we formed. So we used the empty shelves, you know. So this is how we, as I said, how we fulfilled our time on the streets with the help of the empty shelves, you know, to whistle, to sing, or just, let's say, to communicate. The ammunition was mostly from AK-47, Kalashnikov, Romanian production. Romania had and still has the license to produce this kind of ammunition inside of our borders. But as well, East German or Czechoslovakian, like this particular one. 7.62 caliber, let's say we used to call them Soviet type caliber, you know, Soviet type bullets, 7.62. Romania being part of NATO, we produce 5.65 caliber ammunition, but we continue to produce this kind nowadays, especially to export them for different countries. Now, especially in Ukraine, to defend itself from the invaders. Yeah, so if you have any kind of questions, by the way, please, lady.
Did your parents know that you were going to the revolution?
If my parents know that actually, what happened, I told my dad on that morning, 21st of December, that I'm going to buy milk. So I ran away from home. You know, actually back then, we supposed to give back the bottles, you know, empty bottles in order to receive bottles with milk. So I threw away 5 bottles milk used to buy. I ran away downtown with the money for milk, yeah, 22.5 lei, and I came back on Christmas Eve, yeah. My dad was very upset, yeah, of course, so that's... What did we have? Actually, in the beginning, we had only cobblestones, pieces of brick, you know, smashed in different parts, some sticks, empty bottles. The last night before the Romanian army switched sides, we had the classical Molotov cocktails. But the next day, after that, December 23rd, when the Romanian army switched sides, they started to deliver us guns instead of our ID. So starting with that moment, we had the same weaponry with, let's say, the terrorists being Ceausescu's defenders. Till then, we fought, as I told you, with everything we found.
They didn't use tanks?
Excuse me?
They didn't use tanks like they did in Hungary in the 50s?
56. They used tanks, as I said. Some of us were, were being trapped by tanks, including here on the boulevard. So by the way, if you have the chance to see clips, you will see different types of machineries, on the streets of Bucharest, including tanks, real tanks. Yeah, real tanks. So the revolutionaries didn't use tanks. We didn't know how to drive them. But when the army switched sides and came with us, they did that, and we were on the tanks, and you will see a lot of pictures on the net, by the way, with revolutionaries on the tanks, you know, and soldiers with the Romanian flag, and, you know, people were offering them all kind of food especially. Please. What's actually about Ceausescu's execution? Just, I guarantee he used it. Yeah.
So his government was corrupt?
Ceausescu's government. It was a communist government, of course, and communists are corrupt through definition. You know, they consider themselves as being more equal than the others. You know, so they were like demigods. You know, so they didn't used to pay for things. For example, they used to come and pretend, and everything's supposed to be free. You know, so it was very corrupt, yeah, indeed, of course. And the first line of communists was dethroned, if I may say. A lot of them were imprisoned, but because they were more than 66 years old, interesting, because they were more than 66 years old, the law says that the penalty will be reduced with 2/3. So that's why instead of 15 years in jail, they're supposed to stay only 5, yeah? But the law says as well, if you write a book in prison, one book is equivalent with 4 months in prison. Or if you wash dishes, 1 day of washing dishes is equivalent with 2 days of prison. So what do you think those politicians did on there, you know? Wash dishes and wrote books, wash dishes and wrote books. That's why in 2 years, no more than 2 years, all of them were out. You know, they were, and they stepped back, you know, from the first line of politics. You wanted to ask me, sir?
On balance, what was worse, the Nazis or the communism?
Definitely the communists. You know, for example, yes, I would like to tell you something about the Second World War. German Nazis, when they invaded Romania, they used to, it was the army, yeah? When they were hungry, look, I have goosebumps. You know what they used to do? The Nazis. They used to go to peasants, ask or confiscate, ordered, I want that pig or something, but they pay for it. Communists, when they arrived, said, okay, this pig to us, and I like that lady. Give her to our soldier. This is what the communists did, the Soviets. It's like that, the difference between, you know. So then, or by the way, we had Romanian soldiers imprisoned in Germany during Second World War. They were treated like human beings. In Russia, they were treated like animals. You know, so it's like that. You know? There's no comparison between. So, of course, what Nazi did, Nazism, yeah, which is actually socialist, National Socialism doctrine, you can see the same thing, is about the mentality of people, you know. What happened, by the way, I was trying to make like a bridge over time. What happened in Ukraine? The Red Army entered in Ukraine and removed the toilet bowl. Some soldiers from Buryatia Republic removed and sent them to, because they didn't have at home, something like that. So, you know, or they used to, in Ukraine 2 years ago, they used to steal from common people washing machines. But those Red Army soldiers don't have electricity in their homes. God bless you. How to use them, as long as you don't have water to use the toilet bowl or electricity to use the washing machine. But it was an occasion to steal. The same thing did Red Army here in Romania. You know, they killed mothers, pregnant women. They put the stabber and they removed the kids, they cut the head and play football with the head of So there are a lot of stories. This is the real face of Russian imperialism compared with, let's say, German imperialism. You know, Nazi treated prisoners like humans, I repeat, compared with Red Army soldiers. So there are a lot of stories. We don't have a year to talk about what they did here. You know, they were brutes. They came, steal, rape, killed, mutilated everyone. Anyway, any other questions, Mike?
How did you?
Ladies first.
What ignited the revolution?
What
Started the revolution?
What ignited the revolution? As I told you earlier, the revolution started as a local revolt in Timișoara city, where a pastor supposed to be evicted from his church. His crime, he offered an interview to Radio Free Europe. And a Hungarian newspaper. And for that, the authorities decided to expel him from the city, move him in a village somewhere in Transylvania. And he agreed because you're supposed to obey, yeah, back then. But his people did not. That's why on that morning, in front of the building, there's a square, small square, St. Mary's Square. And 20 people around, yeah, gathered. It was illegally more than 5, yeah. That's why the pastor said, go home, you can be arrested. And they said, no, but we want you to remain here. No, I agree to go in a village in Transylvania as a pastor, because this is, I did it. I offered an interview. That was my crime. And immediately, Securitate agents surrounded them, the people from that square. But they were in civilian, yeah? So that's why pedestrians, seeing in the square, there were 88 people, let's say 80 people, 80 militiamen and Securitate agents, and 20 protesters. Yeah, in total, let's say about 100. When pedestrians, came on that area, they saw a lot of people, 100 people in the square. They didn't think that actually 80 of them are agents. Said, oh, it started here. And they stopped by, they stopped the tramways, and they came, tens and tens of people. And when they were about 200 people, Securitate, of course, disappeared, and they let 200 protesters on that small square, St. Mary's Square, because the square was too tight for them. They decided to go and pray in the main cathedral. And they marched from this church to the main cathedral in Timișoara. When they wanted to enter the church, the cathedral, the priest of the cathedral closed the door in front of them, didn't allow them to enter and pray inside of the cathedral. And that's why the people said, no problem, we can pray outside on the stairs. And while they were on their knees with candles on their hands, in one voice saying the Lord's Prayer, from their back, Romanian army, Timișoara branch, entered the square and opened fire, executing them. Not all of them. Those who were wounded, as I told you, were sent to hospitals. But during night time, Securitate agents entered the hospitals and executed in the forehead every witness. And that's why the families of those who lost their lives, neighbors, friends, relatives, and other people, rise, the whole city, and they were very furious, and they entered in any military unit and disarmed the soldiers with their bare hands. And afterwards, the Romanian army suicide, Timișoara branch. Yeah, not the whole. So this is what ignited the revolution. Ceausescu was in Iran in a visit, and he said, "I will come fast to Bucharest to have a big meeting because I want to show to the whole world that Romanians love socialism." And that's why he was so shocked to see that people started to boo him. So I think I clearly answered your question.
Did the priest survive? The priest
The priest, yes. So the priest became the vice president of the European Union some years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He involved himself in politics now. I think he preferred to came back and stay in the church. After he had a mandate in Europe and Brussels, the capital of Europe. Anyway, any other questions?
How did
Please,
your life turn out after
How did my life turn out after
the
that? So I
revolution?
continued my education. I was a student, a pupil in the 9th grade. I continued my education. Afterwards, I went to the university. I'm an engineer in agronomic sciences, working with birds. Birds cannot shoot people, by the way. And activating the civil society with my organization, Association 21st of December 1989, as I told you in the beginning. And that's it, yeah.
Thank you.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
thank you. Yeah, are
Thank you
hungry?
for sharing.
Are you hungry?
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for coming.